I am here in Miami at our Executive Leadership Conference with Amy Walter of the Cook Political Report. Amy, let's get right down to it.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the top 5 races this cycle.
All right, well, for the House, let's look at what's going on in a state like Minnesota. Angie Craig, she is going to have a very competitive race. So is Sydney Axney down outside of Des Moines. So those 2 races, really important. Remember, Democrats only have a 5-seat majority, so they can't afford to lose those 2 members especially. And then in the Senate, look, a lot of the races right now that are important are in the Sun Belt: Arizona Senate, Georgia Senate, Nevada Senate. But I also look at a place like Ohio, where it's an open race. Rob Portman is leaving, very big, very competitive. Right now, also kind of rough and tumble Republican primary in Ohio. Pennsylvania, Pat Toomey leaving. Both sides have really big primaries there. So those are all going to be really important to watch.
So let's talk about the Midwest Democrat. How well is the Midwest Democrat going to fare in the elections, and what's the future of a Midwest rural Democrat?
Yeah, so I've been in politics long enough to remember when Democrats had both Senate seats in North Dakota, both Senate seats in South Dakota. They would regularly send Democrats from Iowa and Ohio. That hasn't happened in recent years. It's getting harder and harder for individual members of Congress to sort of carve out their own identities, like we saw with the, Bob Kerrys in Nebraska, or the Dorgans in North Dakota, or Heidi Heitkamp in North Dakota. That isn't. That's just not happening as much anymore. But there are some folks who are able to still hold on there, in part because they have shown themselves to be sort of a unique brand, right? They're not necessarily a national Democratic brand. They are a fill-in-the-blank state or fill-in-the-blank region brand. Somebody like Sherry Bustos in Western Illinois has done a really good job of that. Now, she's leaving Congress, so we won't get to see how successful she will be, but I think she was really the model for that.
So if we see a bit of a red sweep and there's a little bit more shift to the right in terms of Washington leadership in 2023, what's going to happen to the climate agenda and climate-driven policy?
Right. Well, what I'll be very curious to see is how much will be driven then from the executive branch, right? You don't have control of Congress, so that means, all right, no big legislative movement, but you can still do a lot through agencies. Now, there's still paperwork you have to go through, and it doesn't always stick around, right? You can do executive orders or have agencies put recommendations forward that if a new president comes in, those things get swept away. But I think that's where you're going to see a lot more of the effort then from the Biden administration, especially going into a 2024 election where they want to show that they've made some real movement on climate.
Amy, Great to see you. Always a pleasure to see you, not just on the screen, but live in person.
Thank you so much.
We had a wonderful time.
Thanks for having me here.
Thank you.